Hey everyone, welcome to the Discover Virginia podcast. I'm Joseph Trahan, your host for the #1 video podcast in Virginia, where we explore the rich history, vibrant culture, and iconic businesses that make our Commonwealth truly special and worth talking about. So get ready as together we discover Virginia. Success is not built overnight. It's the results of failure, resilience, and those pivotal moments when you just decided to bet on yourself. Today's guest, Ron Mann, knows this firsthand. His journey through entrepreneurship, financial challenges, and game-changing decisions is a masterclass in overcoming adversity and building long-lasting success. In today's episode, we dive into the toughest lessons in business, the best investment he ever made, and the mindset that separates those who win from those who don't. If you're looking to win in business and you're looking to make an impact in your entrepreneurship journey today, this conversation is for you. Ron, welcome to the podcast.
No, thanks for having me. And that was a great introduction. I was actually impressed by myself.
Well, you're a very impressive man, and we are so excited to have you on the show today. I'd love to get kicked off with the word entrepreneurship. It's one of those terms that gets thrown around quite a bit. What does entrepreneurship mean to you?
Well, I've never really been considered myself an entrepreneur. I mean, as you know, because people talk about, oh, you're an entrepreneur. That's awesome. I'm just a guy who, had a need and wanted to do best for my family and found a way to do it, starting a business. And it's scary, but I mean, I think it's just, stepping out on faith and trying to build something from nothing. And, if you're successful, great. If not, hopefully you learn from your mistakes.
So you see yourself more as, would we say, more of a businessman?
Yeah, I mean, just a self-made businessman. I mean, I'm not formally educated. I'm a high school graduate with an apprenticeship at Norfolk Naval Shipyard as a nuclear electrician. No college background, no business classes or anything like that. But I'm customer service focused. I'm very service minded. And, to me, those are the key ingredients in making a successful business. Because if you're focused on your customers and you're focused on providing the very best service that you can, then everything else falls into place.
And I appreciate that, Ron, and it's very admirable, the journey that you've had so far, and I appreciate you clarifying that term because, like you said, most people would assume entrepreneur because there's not the traditional pathway to success, right? You didn't get the 4-year college or the 2-year extension from grad school. You literally figured it out as you went with this service mindset. Every business owner, and I'll include entrepreneur here as well, they face challenges, especially early on, right? You're figuring out, you're going through scenarios, and you're really trying to figure out what is actually a good idea and which ones are bad. Can you take us back to a time when things weren't going as planned and your journey towards becoming a self-made business owner? And what was one of the toughest parts about that journey?
Well, for me, starting off, no business experience or anything like that. I mean, the jobs that I had led me to know about service and stuff like that. But in the beginning, which I think we talked off camera about my faith, there was a lot of prayer involved in getting started. And I'll never forget that. We had instantly answered prayers. I mean, I don't know your faith or your beliefs, but instantly answered prayers that was affirming to what I was doing. But I'll never forget, it was about the 11th month into the business that I started. We were running out of money. When you start off, you got to go to the banks and you're leveraging all your assets, to get business loans to get started. And in that is money to pay yourself. And we were month 11 to a point where I was running out of money. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, we were losing about $3,000 a month, which up to that point was coming out of the business loans. And I mean, I literally fell on my face and I'm like, Lord, I don't know what's going to happen next. And I got no lie. And I may get emotional because it's a very emotional a topic for me. But the very next day, I got a call from a company that needed this huge purge job done, which is, backlog of boxes. That paid for all of my expenses for that month, and I never touched that business loan again.
Wow.
So a lot of faith, a lot of struggle. But, we got through it. And like I said, we were 14 years with that company before I sold it reluctantly. But that was the biggest challenge that I faced, because from that point on, I didn't have any more challenges, no major challenges. I mean, you have, small stuff, but nothing major that was company threatening or family threatening.
And I know you mentioned this piece of prayer and faith. I'd like to chat about that next too, because there are many guiding principles or beliefs that business owners and entrepreneurs have when they're navigating this landscape that is often unpredictable, right? And many businesses don't make it in the first 5 years of startups. Looking back for you, was there a particular decision or mindset shift that helped you turn things around when it came to how you viewed your prayer and your faith life?
Well, faith is just what it is. It's faith. And sometimes it's shaky and sometimes it's strong. But when I had that moment, and where I was literally to the point where, what am I going to do? Because I couldn't go back to the bank for more money. I had no more assets to leverage as collateral. Just did not know what I was going to do. At that point, I had one employee plus myself. Right. So I had to think about that employee's well-being, because they had a family. But from that point, when I literally, and when I say literally fell on my face, I was literally on the floor. And from that point on, that was the decision at that point, that I just gave it up to God. I just said, you put me in this business. I know you put me in this business because of the instantly answered prayers that affirmed it. Everything clicked all along the way. So I'm here. And if you wanted me here, what's next? It's in your hands. So the decision to basically just give it to God, I think that was the best decision I could ever make, instead of trying to figure it out on myself. Because like I said, from that point on, for the next 14 years, it was growth. We won multiple awards for Entrepreneur of the Year award, multiple awards for customer service, the best of competition. We won it multiple years in a row for the entire Hampton Roads area. We got Portsmouth Small Business of the Year award. So from that point on, everything went, I don't necessarily want to say according to my plan, but it went according to God's plan. And we were growing. We were a multi-million-dollar a year company when I sold 14 years later.
Ron, thank you for sharing that. I definitely want to impact the sale of the company a little bit more. But before we get into that, thank you for sharing that, and also the honestness that you have, the honest nature that you have towards your faith too, because I know sometimes entrepreneurs or business owners or, teachers and coaches, they feel like they need to keep that thing separate, to protect, the job or protect the role that they're fulfilling. But it's kind of one and the same for you. And it sounds like for your faith of service, they're not different. They're identical to how you run and operate. Success isn't always one big moment, but a series of small steps in the right direction, right? Was there a point in your journey, I'd love to hear about the aha moment of when you discovered that company and the idea around that company of, shredding paper. This is a good business model for me. Tell me more.
Well, first of all, it's not very glamorous. It's shredding documents.
Lots of paper cuts, I imagine.
Lots of paper cuts, absolutely. I mean, I even had a friend of mine when we started the business. He gave me a pair of scissors, and he called it the butt tool, and it was a backup tactical tool. He said, in case my shredders ever break down, I can start cutting paper with these scissors. That's hanging on my wall. So I was with Brinks for a number of years in various roles. I was a product support manager for the entire U.S. And when I got into that, they told me 50% travel. I didn't know they meant weeks and weekends, because I was gone every single week, home every weekend. Wow. And that got tired. I had a young daughter at home, and I figured my wife needed me, and she needed me. But so I wanted to start a business. I've always wanted to have a business of my own. And over the course of about 5 years, I would come home with all these crazy ideas, starting this business or that business. And my wife, God bless her, I mean, she's a rock. And she's like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. No, I don't think that's going to work. So I'm like, okay, I'll try something else.
What was one of the bad ones?
Well, one of them was...
or the ones that wasn't approved by wifey.
Well, one of them, which has turned out to be not too bad now because they're popping up everywhere, is car wash.
Okay, yeah.
Back then, there were few and far between, full-service car washes and stuff like that, but now they're on every corner. So that may have been a good idea, but for me, it wasn't the right thing at the right time.
Right.
But I was driving home from work one day, very bad day, and I'm like praying again. I'm like, Lord, I got to have something. And I passed a shredding company that we actually used at Brinks. And so I went home and told my wife about it. I'm like, I've looked it up. I don't see any other competition. There's no other companies in the area. So I went back the next day and I pulled my contract for that company and found out that they were charging me more to shred my paper at Brinks than I was charging to move hundreds of thousands of dollars with armed guards. I'm like, these guys need competition. But I would go into a retail location and pick up their deposits to take to the bank for them.
Right.
And we were charging them half to do that.
Oh, okay.
And we had,
So
it
pretty
was
substantial
multiple
difference.
employees, all armored vehicles, the whole deal.
Right.
So they were charging me almost double for a service stop. And so I was like, these guys need some competition. And that was actually in August of 2004. And I left Brinks and started stealth shredding in January of 2005, so less than 5 months later.
Did you have any doubts going into stealth shredding?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of things, it's like, okay, do you really want to do this? We had built a house and, we had some equity in the house that I was going to have to use, as collateral for loans. I had some money in the 401k that I was going to use, take that out early, pay the penalties, and use that money. Savings, that we would have to leverage. So, yeah, there was a lot of doubts. But, again, with my wife, she's just an awesome encourager. She's like, you're going to do this. You're going to make it happen. It's a great opportunity. It seems like a great business because they don't have a lot of competition in the area. And it's document and information security, which, back in 2004, 2005, that is when it was a big deal. It was blowing up. Everybody was getting their identity stolen.
Right.
Fake checks and, credit card fraud. And it was a huge, huge topic at that time. And the doubts, yes, we had them, but the positives and the potential outweighed the negatives.
I really appreciate you sharing that, and that's so encouraging to hear, especially like with your partner dynamic that you have with your wife, that she not only supported you but also encouraged you in spite of those doubts. On the other side of the coin, was there anybody in your circle that was like, dude, don't do this, like this is a bad idea?
I don't remember anybody being negative. Most of the people in my family are very positive, encouraging people.
Sure.
My father, my mother, my brothers, everybody was encouraging. I had to be careful about how much information I shared and with who.
Sure.
Because I worked for Brinks, and it's a security company. I mean, it was armored car,
Right.
security. And if they get wind that you're looking to leave, you automatically become a security risk, and they let you go. And there's no 2 weeks or no notice. Even if you give a 2 weeks notice, you're escorted out.
Sure.
So I had to keep information kind of tight-lipped. It was only my inner circle, that knew. But everybody was encouraging. I don't remember anybody being negative.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. That's another positive
that's a good
reinforcement.
sign. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. When we talk about investments overall, especially investing in a business, most people think about money, right? Because it's like, how much do I need to build this? But sometimes the, best investments we make are in, our personal lives with our spouses or relationships or, going and experiencing things. What investment, financial or otherwise, that you took during this season or perhaps during this season leading up to starting your own business had a lasting impact on your journey? Because I know you mentioned like you didn't have a lot of time to spend with your daughter, and then you were kind of away on weeks. Like, what did that investment of getting a business also get you for your life?
Well, time is money. Everybody says time is money, and time is probably more valuable than money because you can get more money, you can get more things, you can get more stuff, but you can't get more time, and you have to use that effectively. And yeah, like I said, especially with my former company, I was working a lot of hours. I mean, I would fly out Sunday night or Monday morning, and I wasn't getting back until Thursday night or Friday afternoon every single week. And then there was stuff to catch up on, because I'd been out of the office all week. So yeah, the time was the biggest thing. And even starting the company, time, there's a lot of time involved because when I started the company, I ran the truck, I did the sales, I did all the admin. So there was a lot of time. My day didn't start at 8 o'clock or 8:30. My day started at 6:30 in the morning. And my day did not end at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock.
Right.
My day normally ended at 8 o'clock.
You didn't have your first employee till like 11 months in, right?
Yeah,
and that was just the one.
Right. And that was just the one. And, he was a part-time employee. But again, the business hours were spent selling because I didn't have a lot of money to go out and buy a sales force or to hire a sales force. It was all spent on marketing and then my time knocking on doors, which I still do to this day with the new company. Knocking on doors. To me, everybody wants to email. Everybody wants to phone call.
Really?
Everybody wants to LinkedIn.
You're still door knocking, huh?
We are door knocking. And
I love that.
Absolutely.
Where do you door knock? Like local shopping centers or just?
So every business is, no matter what business you're in, if you have employee or customer private information, you're required to have some sort of document disposal policy. Even if you're shredding in-house, doing your own, we don't have but 30, 40 pages a week that we destroy. If you're shredding it in-house, you're required by most of the laws to keep a log of what you're shredding.
Really?
Which means it could be just something as, Joseph, shredded 10 pages today. It doesn't have to be any more complex than that. But if you ever get busted or if everybody says, they had my information and you had an information breach, they're going to come to you and they're going to say, what's your document disposal policy? What's your information security policy? And you are supposed to have a log of stuff that you're shredding.
Wow.
So having a service
yeah.
that fills all the requirements from all of the laws, the FACTA laws, the HIPAA laws, and stuff like that. So
absolutely. I laugh because that's like not something anyone ever would think of. And I think you nailed this down pretty well, but like you went off to sell this amazing business because you knew the ins and outs of the industry. Can you walk us through some of those major milestones or checkpoints that you had from start to finish of your first company before selling it off?
Well, obviously, so a shredding truck back then, cost about $250,000 a piece. So every time we would buy a shredding truck was kind of like opening a new location. So that was a big deal for us.
Right.
You buy a new shredding truck, $250,000 investment, new drivers. You have to have the business to support it.
Sure.
It's nice to have extra trucks because just like with any business that has vehicles, you have certain breakdowns and stuff like that and maintenance that you have to pull the trucks down. So when you have multiple trucks, it actually makes the job easier because you don't have to worry. If this truck breaks down, you have other vehicles to cover. I can't go out and rent a truck. You just can't rent a shredding truck. And all of our contracts were to perform on-site shredding. So the biggest milestones for us was, number one, was moving out of the house. Because when I started, I was operating out of my home. Like
Sure.
I said, it was me doing all the work, driving the truck, doing all the sales, and operating out of my house. So for us, getting to the point where we could actually afford an office, an off-site office. And it's not like just renting an office, a little one-room space. Because of our shredding vehicles and the security, everything had to be locked behind fences for our certifications that we held and still do. So the moving out of the house was probably the biggest milestone to start with. And that allowed me at that point to really evaluate my needs for additional employees. Because at that point, I can't run the truck every day. I couldn't even do all the admin. But I can't have multiple people coming in my home every day for work.
Right. It almost got real at that point.
Yeah,
right?
It got real at that point. When you start off, and I did actually have a family member that was working part-time for me, doing a lot of my admin work, and she was coming to the house. But that gets crowded.
Sure.
So getting the building, which was after about, I think we got our first office space about 15 months in, and that was just a two office spaces that we rented over in Portsmouth. And then we started growing from there. And then we got a building over in Chesapeake, 12,000 square foot building. Started adding services, and it wasn't just shredding. We were doing document storage and scanning and imaging and stuff like that. So that's how we grew. So each new business line was a milestone for us, getting into the scanning side and getting into the document storage side.
Wow, just spiraling on up. So just continuing
Growth.
to grow and build and reinvest it back in the business with more trucks,
Exactly.
more spaces, and then obviously more trucks, you get to advertise more on the roads, right?
Right, they're mobile
Yeah.
billboards. I mean, so we spend a lot of effort in making sure that our trucks stand out.
Yeah.
I mean, even with stealth shredding, the trucks were black and gold, or black and yellow.
Sure.
More,
Yeah.
University gold, I think they call it. But black and yellow, they really shined going down the street. Now they're black and orange, all black trucks with orange lettering. So they show up, and that's what you want.
Yeah. So stealth shredding, albeit very successful and growing and continuing to scale, you decided to sell. What was that process like? What led to that decision?
Well, so there was a worldwide company that was in an acquisition mode. They were trying to buy up companies, and they had approached me many times, and we held about, I would say, 40% of the market share in Hampton Roads.
Sure.
And we were growing in the Richmond area. We didn't have 40%, but we were gaining market share.
This is in 2017.
This
right?
was in 2017 when that started.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they approached me to sell, and I didn't want to sell. Completely not in the thought process. I wanted to build a company that I could pass to my daughter, really.
Right.
And at the time, she was in college or getting ready to go to college, and like a lot of millennials, no interest in working a 9-to-5 office job, and I get it. I still don't want to do that, but we do it. So she had no interest, and the company that was going to buy us, they got more and more aggressive. And again, we're talking about a worldwide company, and
Sure.
if they wanted to, now whether they would have done it or not, I don't know. But if they wanted to, they could have crushed us, just because they're worldwide. I mean, they spend millions of dollars like I've spent pennies, and so they just kept on and kept on and kept on. And finally, I just talked it over with my wife. Again, a lot of prayer about what to do, and came to the decision that it was the right time to sell. So we sold the company, and then lo and behold, a couple of years later, COVID hits. COVID would have decimated my company. We would not have survived.
Really?
Even the company that I sold to, all
Sure.
of my employees went to work for them. And they were telling me how scarce the work was, because what we do is we service offices. That's the majority of our work was
Right.
offices, and nobody was going to work. So there was no paper being generated, no documents being generated, and I don't know that we would have survived it. We had a lot of medical offices, but we had no hospital contracts. Hospital contracts, they're huge, but they're hospitals. They're high volume, but very, very low profit margin and very high headache. So we never went after the hospitals. We didn't want that sector.
Sure.
But that's what got a lot of the shredding companies through the COVID was the hospital contracts.
Wow.
So we were very blessed. It was the right time to sell, and it was just it was a lot of prayer and answered prayers that we decided to sell.
I want to flash forward to our last segment here. You decided to go back to shredding.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Probably
what
not
happened
the most
after
popular
COVID?
decision.
What happened after COVID? You decided just to go back and do it again?
Well, I had a non-compete.
Okay,
I
of
had
course.
a non-compete for 5 years. A month after that non-compete ended, I started the new company. And it was out of when I retired. My original goal was I wanted to be able to retire when I was about 50 years old.
Sure.
I wanted to be able to retire and still have the health, the energy, and the ability to do things. I mean, my wife and I, we love to travel. We travel a lot. And I did not want to wait till I was 65 or 70 years old, because then what can you do? You don't know. Health can go south quick. So I retired basically at 53. But that was too young. There is really a
So
point
50 was
too young.
just too low for you.
Yeah, it really was, because my wife, she has had her own company for many years and still does, and among some other stuff she's doing. But I not getting up and going to work every day. I mean, I had some side things I was doing. We did a couple of renovations, some remodels,
Sure.
and stuff like that. But every day I felt like I had to justify my existence, if I should say, not to my wife, but just in general for my own personal self-worth. So I got bored. I took a job with a family member as a warranty manager for their construction company, and that was great. But the time I felt was right. You know, we got a lot of phone calls after I sold the business originally.
I was gonna say, were people calling and like, "Hey, Ron, when are you gonna open up your own shop?"
Yeah, they had my cell number. They're like, "When are you getting back into it? You know, you need to get back into it." I can't. But when the time was right, we decided to see what we could do. See if we could do it again. You know, it's you mentioned success, and I did want to clarify something. Success to me has absolutely nothing to do with money, and it really doesn't. Success to me is being able to provide a good job for your employees, being able to provide for your family. Nothing made me happier than to see my employees pulling up in a new car or saying, "Hey, we're taking a cruise next week." That made me happy because I was a part of that. That's success. So I'm sorry. I'm an emotional guy.
No, you're good. That's let it out. I mean, that's this. We get honest on these conversations because mainstream media aside, but also men in general, we have a hard time having conversations, guys. So like, this is important because there's not a blueprint, a model for how to have faith and also run a business, right? There's not always a blueprint for how to do a lot of things. So having these conversations are important, and speaking candidly and truthful to them is important.
It is. And I mean, to be honest with you, it should be emotional.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's a lot at stake when you're trying to build a business and you're trying to provide for your family.
It's heavy.
And your employees. That's a lot of weight. That's a lot of weight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said, Ron. Yeah. No need. Yeah, absolutely. So for Doma Shred, right? Doma Shred's the new name. Everyone was like, come on back, Ron. Come shred some favors. What can businesses expect aside from great referrals and great customer service when it comes to maybe the day-to-day applications or maybe the month-to-month or contract-based applications of your business and the products and services that you fulfill?
Well, right now, all we're doing is on-site document shredding, document and data shredding. So, I mean, we shred hard drives, we shred data media, SD cards, flash drives, stuff like that. But I was fortunate, and which was also a big part of the decision to get back into this. All of my current employees are former Stealth employees. So we've been able to continue right where we left off with the customer service.
Right.
I mean, I used to say when I was with Brinks, I had 55 truck employees, and I might go an entire 3 or 4 or 5 months without ever getting somebody emailing or calling and going, "Hey, the guy who services us, he's outstanding. We appreciate him. He goes above and beyond."
Right.
With 55 employees, once every 3 or 4 or 5 months. At Stealth, at the high point, we had 9 service employees, truck employees.
Yeah.
With those people, I was getting calls 1 or 2 times a week for 9 employees. How fantastic they were. But that says a lot. That's the customer service. So fortunately, I was able to get a couple of people back from Stealth that are working for me now. And so the customer service side, we haven't missed a beat. I mean, we're getting referrals from our current customers. We're getting calls, saying how great my driver is. They do a great job, and the customer service is what it's all about. It's like we talked about a minute ago. When you provide superior customer service, people are going to talk about you. They're going to tell others. Just like if you have your air conditioning go out at home, what are you going to do? You're going to open up, you're going to Google. I almost said open up the Yellow Pages, but nobody's going to know what that was.
Yeah.
You're not. What are you going to do? You're going to Google. You're going to search it. No, you're probably going to call or go on your local Facebook page. Hey, who is the best AC contractor? You're going to ask for a recommendation from people that you know and you trust, and that's what we do, and that's what we hope for.
I love it. Ron, thank you so much for this conversation today. It's been truly helpful and enlightening and, of course, inspiring to hear your journey and also some of the parts that you didn't know were expected in your journey because of your faith and your prayer that opens that door for more dialogue as well for, more guests and conversations in the future.
And I'm glad you used the word journey because it is a journey. It's a constant. And if you're not moving forward, you're dying.
Yeah, because, and I'll touch on that too, because like you said, you sold your company for, a couple $1 million. And then it was like, you were still there and like your journey was still happening.
Right.
Even though your business wasn't there anymore. Right. You still had something to do. You still had a mission. Right. Purpose.
Yeah. Still had something to give.
Yeah. Ron, as we wrap up this conversation today, from all the entrepreneurs and business owners you've met, people of faith or not, and worked with, what do you think separates the ones who succeed from the ones who struggle to gain any traction at all?
That's a good question, because there's different attributes to those who I consider successful, that have been an influence on me. I think integrity is probably the single biggest attribute, because having integrity, I think I heard it explained one time, that's doing the right thing even excuse me, that's doing the right thing even when nobody's listening or looking. And to me, that if you have integrity, that shines through everything you do. It's in the service that you provide. It's in the pricing that you charge. Because when you're in business for yourself, there's a lot of temptation to go, oh, I can charge a little bit more for this because there's a need, but not doing that just because it's an opportunity to charge more. And I think the people with integrity, obviously, faith is huge,
Right.
but you set aside from that, I think integrity is the biggest thing. It's doing the right thing all the time, no matter what the cost, how it could impact us or hurt us as a person or even a company.
Right.
I mean, we were successful because there were times that doing the right thing cost me money because, we either didn't make it on time or whether it was our fault or not. Right. Doing a job for free. I've done many jobs for free because we didn't fulfill what we were supposed to do. But, every single time that I did a job for free, it ultimately ended up in a bigger job, even with that same company, because they looked at that integrity.
Wow. It speaks volumes.
It absolutely speaks volumes.
Ron, thank you again for your time today. I appreciate it. I'd love to roll out the red carpet. Any final words or messages you want to leave the audience with? The floor is all yours.
Well, we are a new company, Doma Shred, and as a new company, we face the struggles of any startup. We've been in business a little over a year, and if you have a shredding vendor, and it might be a time to take a look at what you're doing. Doing the same old thing that you've been doing for years and years and years, you're probably wasting money. I mean, we all know paper, the volumes have gone down. Everything's electronic now. And if you still have the same old shredding vendor, the same old number of consoles, the same service frequencies and all like that, you may be wasting a lot of money in doing so. It's a good opportunity to look at what you're doing. And, you give us a call. We'd be glad to take a look at what you're doing. No cost, no obligation. We just would appreciate the opportunity.
Lovely, Ron. Thanks again for your time.
No,
Appreciate
thank
the
you.
conversation.
Appreciate it.